here, how many kids she's got. Colin, where are the people you care for?
I don't know.
And you still don't care. Good for you. Aman, I saw you, but you had those glasses on. You went like this, but I didn't know if you were suffering from Tourette's or you were actually saying hi. But my apologies. I finally recognized who you are, so yeah. Joey, you're wearing makeup. Good for you. How long does it take you? Half hour? Just a rush job? Yeah. Tammy?
Yes.
How are the dead people?
They're resting.
Yeah. Lark, what's going on?
Oh my gosh, so I trap raccoons with my dad in my backyard, and we always drop them off by Lady College, so we drove by here last night.
That's great. Oh man, yeah. Good for you. Emily, anything new? No? Okay. Danielle?
My actual computer had this one, so I've been fixing that for the past 2 days.
Well, Lainey has all these like computers. Just go take one.
It's more about my data than anything else.
That's true. Yeah. Joey, who are you texting? Chico, is that where you're gonna go? That's far away.
Yeah.
You like getting high? I mean, that's the place for it, really. It's a good school for getting high. I don't know if it's for other things, but it's okay. What are you studying?
What?
What are you studying?
Sociology.
Why? Okay. It's a good school. Is it next semester?
Yeah.
You got accepted?
Yeah.
You have money?
Sending my transcript.
Oh, okay. Merced, UC Merced is good. They just opened up like a few years ago.
I still got in touch with Corona.
Hello, Abby. How are you? Good, thank you. Abby, this is Kiran.
Yeah.
Wait, you know each other? Really? Where?
But
Our house? Yeah. Well, is there anything you guys want to talk about before we go home? Okay. Tell me.
is it necessary for a mentor if you want to change?
You work with dead people and you're familiar with the ins and outs of death.
Yes.
I can certainly watch a lot of YouTube clips about that, read a lot of books, talk to people like this. Everybody giving me a certain assumption. You, on the other hand, being in the business for the past like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you like the shortcut. I can certainly try, reading, talking to strangers, and they can all give me like a perspective that are going to prove themselves to be useless. You, on the other hand, You've been hands-on. There are, I suppose, teachers in regards to all sorts of things. You're a mother, and so you teach your kids how to eat. I'm sure they can eventually learn not to eat like animals, like raccoons. But even though, but with parental help, it'll be much easier. They can eventually learn how to walk, but, they hold your finger here and there. You can eventually probably learn how to read or do math. You could probably ride a bicycle. I mean, there are all sorts of things that you and I can do on our own. But I think a teacher can kind of make things go by relatively faster. It also depends what exactly it is you want to learn. Is it something physical? Is it something emotional? I mean,
What about unlearning?
oh,
That part of change.
it depends what exactly it is you want to unlearn. If you're talking about, let me give you an example. There are certain parts of China where you go into the bathroom, the stalls have no doors. You just sit there and, it's everybody parties.
Yeah.
I mean, there are no doors.
Right.
So this idea of private space, it just doesn't exist. Let's say you happen to be in a very progressive school here in Oakland, and the president of this particular school happens to be Chinese. And comes to realize that Americans are a bit too private. It's a victimhood culture and it's a confessional culture. We need to overcome all those things. So let's start with, removing the doors from the bathrooms. Well, that has been part of who and what you are in this culture for the past, many, many thousands of years. All of a sudden, you have to adjust to sitting and doing what people usually do in the bathroom with no doors. So people just come in, there you are, pushing away, and someone says, "Hey, Tammy, how you doing?" You said, "Fine, how are you?" So is it something you have to unlearn? Absolutely. Is it going to disturb you for a little or a long while? Definitely. Are you going to revolt against this new policy? Probably. So there are certain cultural things that are just embedded, it's just part of who and what we are, and unlearning them is going to be really, really tough. Then there are these personal experiences like Lark. I mean, it's not about you. I mean, she's like 12. What? All right, fine. She's like 13 and a half. And she has her ideas about love, relationships, and all that stuff, okay? She's read some books. She's had some experiences. She has some friends with whom she's talked about love, Do her parents once in a while sit her down and try to educate her about the complexities of this particular emotion? The answer is yes. Is she able to overcome her own biases? The answer is no. So that's going to take some time for her to unlearn. One of the best ways we unlearn is you trust yourself, you do what you need to do, then you fall, there's pain. If you have the capacity, you sit back, you think, you reflect, and maybe if you're ready at the proper stage, after taking some notes, you learn some of the mistakes, but it doesn't mean that you still know how to use what you've learned in a practical way. Then there are some of us in this class or anywhere, that we've experienced some traumatic events in life. Marriage is traumatic, divorce is more traumatic, having children is like trauma times 25. There was an event that took place in New York. I think it was in the 1980s. There was a book about it. I think it's called 33 or 30 or something, or 28. It was a life story of Kitty Genovese. She was a waitress at a coffee shop, some restaurant. She's walking home around midnight. It's dark. It's nobody's around. She feels as if there is someone who's following her, and there's this guy. He runs towards her. She screams for help. She gets stabbed a few times, but nobody helps her. She gets herself up, crawls, to her apartment complex. She screams help. Some lights come on, but nobody comes down. This man comes, rapes her, stabs her. She dies, but imagine for a moment if she was to stay alive, She's going to be traumatized about any place that's dark. She is going to probably lose trust and faith in all human beings out there, and that's a really difficult thing to overcome. So it really depends what exactly it is that you want to unlearn. Traumas are very, very difficult to overcome. One of the nice things about us is that we have this capacity to repress, to forget. It's what we call buffers, So yeah. I mean, life has this addictive force to it. All of us in this class are addicted. I am just addicted to this way of teaching. I can't change. I mean, none of you may like me, that's fine. And you may even write a beautiful letter. I mean, these are the things you need to do to make your class better. But the truth is, this is who I am. This is who I've been for the past 35 years in the classroom. There isn't much I can do. I appreciate the fact that, you can give me some insights about what it means to be a good instructor at the age of 12 or 13. But, I won't be able to make any drastic changes. The only thing that I know from my own experience is pain is the only remedy. You're just a scumbag. You don't appreciate your family. You don't appreciate your wife, your husband, your health, whatever the case may be, and then you lose them. Pain forces you to think back, realize your mistakes. And if you happen to have been humiliated by life and by the experience, maybe you'll be humble enough to go to your companion and say, listen, sorry for being a jerk. I'll stop drinking or smoking or whatever. There are sometimes I used to like ice cream and half and half in my coffee, but the triple bypass got in the way. So now every time I eat anything that has a bit of sugar or fat, I still eat a little, but as I'm eating, I see my corpse right in front of me. A heart attack, you're going to sleep and not wake up, which is a nice way to go. Being in the hospital, my chest being open by some doctor who happens to be very cute. So the fact that I've been addicted to sugar and fatty foods for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, all of a sudden, this particular experience gives me pause. I think twice about eating anything that could cause me harm. I was 18 or 19, her age. I ran into a guy, I've talked about this man before, my own teacher, a young kid. I was suffering from the confusion of every young people suffers from. And initially I didn't like him. Initially, in fact, I hated him. But then I grew to love him. And then he said, do this. I said, okay. Do that. I said, okay. And that's the reason why I majored in philosophy in school. And so sometimes you can unlearn who and what you are and the way you behave in life by being in love with someone who has certain qualities to them. And their mere presence will force change without you really knowing. It's what they call thief at night. Some people just go inside you, and I'm not talking about sexually. Some people just go inside you and you hang out with them, and a few years later, a few months or a few weeks later, you realize something about you has drastically changed, and you want to pinpoint exactly how this change came about, and you can't figure it out. All you know is that you've changed. You know, I think the deeper the roots go, the more difficult it is to change. Not impossible, but the more difficult. Since, our good friend there, Joey, since she enjoys sociology, I mean, consider the problem of racism, for example, in this country. It's one thing to forget. It's one thing to create flowery language, clever, cunning language. But it doesn't take very much. It just takes the likes of Donald Trump to bring all that to the surface, okay? And you can say that as America, we have unlearned racist perspectives or racist being. Okay? What we have learned is to repress it, push it down, because your society is no longer digesting those things. But Trump comes about, and all of a sudden, once again, it's normalized. When you unlearn something, you understand it, and you're not going to repeat it. I mean, it doesn't mean that you won't slip or you won't fall, but it's not going to happen as often. So is it wise for someone who is a person of color to walk cautiously amongst white folks? Absolutely. I'm not talking about this particular generation because it's very different than the previous one. So, and again, like kind of the movie American History X, if you've seen it. Have you seen it, Colin? Do you care to see it?
What is it called?
American History X. It's about this white guy who's in a clan. He hates people of color. A black kid, breaks into his house. Eventually gets caught, kills him, ends up in prison. Yeah, in prison he gets, has some experiences, unpleasant ones, and the person who rescues him is a black guy. And then when he's freed, he has a completely different perspective. What it means to be black, what it means to have friends, what it means to be white. And then to his surprise, he comes to find that his younger brother has joined the clan, and he goes in to rescue him, And so it really takes, it takes some traumatic experience to force you to unlearn certain things. So going back to your question is, are mentors needed? Is that what was the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You often go to places that you've never gone before, and you use your cell phone, GPS, how do I get myself to Maykade, for example, a restaurant in North Berkeley, and that's a mentor. Sure, you can, do it on your own, ask people, but people for the most part will kind of lead you astray. And after like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of driving around, you just get frustrated. You'll go home and you'll stop by In-N-Out, get a number 2, French fries, cheeseburger, and a medium Coke for $10. So yeah, mentors are necessary. The only thing is, what are you trying to learn or unlearn, and what is this mentor have? In other words, if you go to Jesus Christ, for example, and tell him, I'm going through a divorce and I don't want a divorce, what should I do? He's going to examine the entirety of your life to convince you that life down here is just no good. That if you love your mom, if you love your dad, you can't follow me. That's what he's going to do. If you want to fix your marriage, you don't want a Jesus Christ. What you need is a Dr. Phil. So it depends what it is that you're looking for, and then you have to find the right person. Jesus is no good for many things. So, right, Joey? Good job. Kieran, anything?
how my thoughts are about my kids.
Sure. So is Abiz. It's all about kids now.
How are we supposed to raise them? Well,
Kids are like copy machines. They mimic everything that they see around them. All parents try to protect their kids' innocence for as long as they possibly can. 50 years ago, the kids could go out there, play around till midnight and then come back home, and they'd be fine. These days, everything is uncertain, I mean, I honestly don't know. First, I suppose it starts with parents. Couples have conflicts all the time. Sometimes you raise your voice, your husband, your wife. Then you catch yourself, the kids are around. So you say, okay, honey, we'll talk about this like later on, And then when the kids are asleep, you go to the garage and beat each other up. You become very selective who you want to invite to your house. You become very selective what school you want to send them to, what TV shows they can watch. I think once the kids enter society, it's just a matter of luck, really. Right now in the Bay Area, what's happening is they're creating all gender bathrooms, And this is like from the age 7 all the way to say, 13 and 14. By the time they get to high school, there are some gender specific bathrooms, but it's part of this DEI program, diversity, equity and inclusion. But no one considers perhaps one of the safest and the most private of places is the bathroom. I don't want to come out and see a woman washing their hand, her hand in the bathroom. I don't have a problem with it. As someone who's like in the 60s, I can digest things a little bit better. But you have a daughter. And so, they happen to be, let's just say, 8 or 9. And all of a sudden you get a letter from school. This is the transition you're making. And you sit back and you say, okay, well, in life, what is there really? You have the powerful and then you have the powerless. School has power. You as a parent have very little power, And then we are civilized enough to use nice and flowery language when you meet with people, only to realize at the end of the day, really, you have no power over what the administrators want to do. And then you sit back and you say, well, okay, my daughter is like 6. When she gets to be 10, she's going to have her menstrual experience, and then she's going to come out, there's a boy. They're not going to share the same stall, but they're going to, share the same physical space. With all the funding that's around, once you just have the boys have their bathroom, the girls have their bathroom, and the non-binaries can have their own bathroom. There's nothing wrong with that. And then, in our time, we would watch Bugs Bunny, but now you have Ariana Grande. I don't know if that's a cartoon or not, but And you realize that the force of this culture is so tremendous that as a parent, you sit back and you just say, what am I supposed to do? You know, you may have the desire to move into an Amish community, but that's a fantasy that will always remain a fantasy. It's really tough to leave the city because first, we're addicted to city life. Second, just moving just is tough. The idea of, we were just talking about Ariana. That she never uses the bathroom. She just doesn't shit. That's one of the perks of being a celebrity. Now, yeah. You know, you just hope that they're surrounded by the right forces in life. And initially, you have the power to create that, you know, by the people you hang out with. Once they go to school, you know the prodigal son story in the Gospel of Luke? It's about this father doing all that he can do for his son, and he does. He has a beautiful son. But the son gets to be 9 or 10 or 15 or 16 and says, Dad, I think I can walk now. I think I know who my friends are. I think I know what fun is. I know what cartoons I want to watch. And, you know, the parents in this room, what we all go through is that after a while, you just get frustrated, you know, and out of frustration, you just walk away from the kids and say, yeah, the hell with it. Hopefully they'll get it. And you're hoping that the first 6, 7 years that you spend so much time with them and you put so much care into this relationship that they have a solid foundation. And then they go out there and they forget that foundation for a long, long, long time. At a certain point, hopefully when they're like, I don't know, 25, 26, 30, 40, they slowly begin to remember that foundation and they go back home. In other words, they go back to all the things you taught them and showed them when they were 0 to about 6 or 7 or 8. You know, and that's if you're very, very, very lucky. You know, given the fact that divorce rate is about almost 65, 70%, I'm not really quite sure if people really or kids will have an emotional home to go back to. Not all of us are as lucky as the prodigal son story. You know, at least the son had a place to go back. I don't know kids these days where they go. It's a great question. There's just no answers. Music. You know, Abi teaches Indian music to kids. Take them to church. Have them, you know, eat chips and or biscuits or yeah. Oh, Colin. Once your kids become contaminated, then you hope that they can find the right mentor. And that mentor will hopefully, you know, instill in them things that will revolt against all the bad teachings of society. You hope at least. Yes, Lark.
What do you think about being present in the moment?
So there are 3, I think, time frames we occupy. There's a part of you that lives in the past, and you have to respect that. It's a reality that you have to live with. Your past has made you who you are, and you can't escape that. You are black. I am brown. You are white. You have good parents. I have crummy parents. That's just the way things are, and the better you understand it, the less it has power over you, especially if you've had negative experiences. So it's a great thing to be able to study your past. It's important because it is your history. That's who you are. Right? There is this other part of you that occupies the future, that you're going to school like Joey. I mean, she's on her phone because she's interested in a man who lives in Chico, or a woman, or a cat. Okay, that's your future. It's not here yet, but it lives like 6 months from now. You're here in school because you care about your future, and this idea of live in the moment is just stupid. I want to go to my past and figure out why my past is the way it is, or was the way it was, and how it shaped me. And I live in the future because I fear for my future. I want security. I want money. I want a healthy relationship. I want children. I want good friends. I want a home. I want a this. I want a that. So you plan for that. It's important. Now, there are portions of your moments in the present that you spend looking at the past. Nothing wrong with that. In other words, you use the present moment studying the past. Or maybe you just even living in the past. There are moments in the present that you use. It's like money. You use to figure out what you want to do in the future. There are these moments of grace, okay, where for whatever the reasons are, well, before we talk about that, there are moments where you are captured by some force that pushes you into the present moment. Like you watch a great movie, like The English Patient or Rambo. You're just right there. Or you read a good book, or you're engaged in a great conversation, and that conversation or whatever it is that you're watching, it can take you to the past, that human beings are violent when you watch Rambo, for example, or when you watch English Patient, despite the human organism always desiring physical beauty, there is something about us as you watch the movie, that this very attractive young nurse has fallen in love with a man with a deformed face, a face that has been burnt. So you can have experiences in the present that can free you from the claws of past or the future. And then there are these magical moments, and I don't know how they come about. Sometimes you wake up from a nap and you happen to be in a relatively dark mood where the past you don't much care for, you don't even think about it, the future is irrelevant. The mood, it just has you. And you look around you, nothing gives you meaning. And you're looking for something, but you don't know what it is. The future is meaningless. The past, you don't really much care for. So that becomes meaningless. And you're just right there in the present. And the problem with this particular presence is that it's filled with meaninglessness. And without a mentor, you just get stuck. Okay. Lucky for us, these moments don't last very long. They disappear after like a few minutes. There are also these moments where, you're walking and all of a sudden the sun is setting. Like last night, you're walking and you see the moon and it's almost full. It's 97% full. And you're just mesmerized by its beauty. I remember having gone to Yosemite some years ago. It had been raining for like weeks, and I was, staying in a tent. And then the moon comes out, and the entire forest had this bluish glow to it. And you come out and you say, this is, indescribable, it's beautiful. And you just kind of stand there in awe. There is no future, there is no past, there is no identity. You're not a man, you're not a woman, you're just looking at something and you're amazed. These moments can't be manufactured, but they do leave a mark inside you that, yes, a couple of days ago I saw the moon, all of a sudden I grew wings and I was flying towards the gods, and I want that again. And so you wait for the night to come by, you wait to see the moon and you look at the moon, but now you're standing there looking at the moon, hoping for your wings to grow. But what you don't realize is that the experience you had the night before has contaminated you a little, because now you look at the moon with an expectation that you weren't aware of. So, there are people who have some issues in life. Some are self-made, some have been caused by other people. And one of the ways that I think this culture brainwashes people is, if you want to get rid of your trauma, if you don't want to be around your trauma, always be in the moment. It's what Karl Marx had, or someone like Karl Marx or someone like Sigmund Freud, ways to deceive yourself. I think if for those of us in this class who have traumas or events took place in life that are negative, the best way to spend your present moment, if you have the proper tools, is study the past, understand the past, so you can loosen its grips around your neck. I think this new age movement about being in the present really is about that there are forces in life that you have no power over, there are moods you have no power over, there are events about your past you have no power over, and the best way you can wrestle with them is to be in the present moment. Pay attention to the way you wash dishes. Pay attention to your body language, to your posture, to the way you speak, to the way you think. And don't get me wrong, they're good for like a minute, but your issues are going to come back. So I think one of the best ways you could ever experience the present moment is and it was you. So yes, Joey. Kieran? Colin, yes. What is that, coffee? You drink coffee? Huh. I'm on. I'm sorry?
Do you think it's necessary to have a few mental breakdowns?
So, such a great question. You have a car? You get in your car and you have plans to drive to Laney to take a class. And all of a sudden, the engine breaks down. The car stops in the middle of the highway. You pick up your phone, you call AAA, you wait for an hour, even though it's frustrating. This tow truck will eventually come. You'll call a buddy of yours who happens to own a mechanic shop. You take your car there, and a week or two later, it's fixed. Okay. A couple of things have happened. Your car has broken down, but you have money, you have a cell phone, you have insurance, and you have enough resources, you have enough money to spend on your car. Okay. Life really, for the most part, has only one function, which is kind of just to destroy things. That's what life does. You know, you fall in love, time gets in, you realize your companion is now oxidized, or your emotions have been oxidized. You like them, you just don't love them. Most often, you just don't want to even look at them. You guys don't really talk about anything. You don't have very many things in common anymore. But when you talk about, so the first thing you need to understand is that's what life does. It destroys what it creates. Okay. If your car breaks down and you don't have money, that can be devastating. If your car breaks down, you have money, but there are no mechanics, that's devastating. If your car breaks down, you have money, but you don't have insurance, you have to wait maybe longer and pay more to get your car towed. There are lots of things that are required to fix something. When you talk about mental breakdown, you're talking about your mind having purpose in it, having meaning in it, having history in it. In other words, your history creates who and what you are. A mental breakdown means this engine that has been driving you around for the past many, many weeks or months is no longer working, okay? When it's no longer working, it means that there is no place to go. You've been stranded. And whenever you're stranded, you can be stranded with fellow friends who are as stranded as you are. Now you have a community of poor people, okay? Not poor physically, even though that's a possibility, but poor emotionally, poor intellectually, where you guys can talk and share the same story. You can use the same language to express the same set of emotions, okay? Oftentimes when you and I break down, breaking down creates a good amount of disturbances, confusion, frustration, irritation, anger. And those negative emotions create a great amount of loneliness. There you sit in the desert of your life and there are no nourishments there. And you feel isolated, you feel abandoned. Your parents come to talk to you about what you're going through, but there is so much anger and hatred that you have for yourself, about life, and for the parents who gave birth to you, that you further isolate yourself. Mental breakdown can also lead to depression, and sometimes it can be chronic. Are they necessary? Well, that's what life does to us. If you love your mom, just know that she's going to die. If you love your kids, know that they're going to be polluted by society. If you love philosophy, know that when you sign up for a philosophy class at any college, it's going to be contaminated because they're not going to speak the language that your emotions desire. Okay. If you fall in love, know that love will eventually be taken away by life. If you have any passions about you, know that life will destroy it. Okay. I love this man, Krishnamurti. I met him, I worked with him. He was an Indian sage philosopher. I did my PhD dissertation on him. That dissertation forced hatred for this man because I had to spend 2 years of my life figuring out what the hell he was talking about. After a while, every time I heard the name Krishnamurti, I had to run to the bathroom to throw up. Okay, so that's what life does. It destroys all the things that you loved. Since mental breakdown creates a good amount of darkness and depression, if you have the resources, if you like to read, if you like to talk to some wise people who've been there, who've done that, these are your tow trucks. Okay. Now, if you have the capacity for them to pull this long metal wire and attach it to you and take you where they want to go. In other words, if you have the capacity to submit to someone who's been through what you're going through, submit. Allow them to take control of your life. Physical life, emotional life, intellectual life, spiritual life. Okay? If you're an alcoholic, don't sit behind the wheel. Let someone else who's been there, who's sobered up, let them do that for you. Okay? If you have the resources to overcome, in other words, your brain is like an engine. Someone needs to come in and rewire it for you. In other words, you need to be completely shut down. Okay? That you need to listen to the person who's trying to fix you. You're going to resist. And one of the reasons you're going to resist is because fixing anything requires work. Requires struggle. And that's not something we like to do. I mean, is sitting in this class fun? No. Is coming to school like every goddamn day fun? No. Is doing busy work for classes fun? No. The only reason why you do them is because you have seen other people with a master's degree or a PhD degree or a bachelor's degree working at some company making a 3, 5, 6, 7 figure number figure, right? That motivates you enough to keep yourself at school. When you're sad and depressed, you don't have that vision. Everything about you is gloomy and dark. The only star, like the book of Job, the only North Star is a mentor. You know, if I have been an alcoholic for many years, the only person who can guide me is the person who was an alcoholic, lost a lot of things, went through grief, went through anger, went through meetings for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, realized the reason as to why they were, they got angry, why they were addicted to alcohol, for example. They were able to overcome it. Now they can give you the proper lessons. Are you going to have the ears to listen? Probably not. Are they going to force you? If they love you, care for you, they'll probably force you to listen. Spank you a little, punch you a little. And will you have a breaking point in the sense that all of a sudden this light bulb turns on and you say, now I understand? The answer is yes. How long will it take? Nobody knows. Without resources, problems will remain problems. Let me give you an example. For 6 months when the elevators, maybe 3, 4 months, when the elevators were broke at Tower, I had to climb 4 stairs. Right here, I felt this pain. And I didn't know what it was. I would exercise a little bit. And then the pain got so much, I said, maybe I should check this out. Now, the reason why I could check this out is because I have health insurance. I had 2 doctors. The first said, just drink some Pepsi and it'll go away. The second said, let's do a stress test. Sometimes you could have bad mentors. You could have bad doctors who don't know anything from anything. Or maybe they know, but they're just far too lazy. Or maybe if they're at Kaiser, because everybody checks on them, they try to delay the x-ray and the MCAT or the scan as long as possible because it comes out of their paycheck, so to speak. Okay. So without resources, it's tough. With resources, it's not as tough. I mean, look at our good friend Tyrell. She loves Ariana Grande. She has nightmares about not being able to go to her concert. Isn't that true, Tyrell? I mean, it's devastating. Cry every day, every Friday. Yeah. And you know why she cries? Because she doesn't listen to Weekend. Save your tears for another day. Well, if you did, you wouldn't cry every Friday, goddammit. Now. Now. And so, Tyrell doesn't have the resources. She doesn't know Ariana. She doesn't know Ariana's brother. She doesn't know the Weekend, or the weekdays. So all she left with is just, I love Ariana Grande, but there is nothing to do with that. So Tyrell is going to spend the rest of Tyrell's life crying. If on the other hand, Tyrell had resources, man, that would be beautiful. She wouldn't cry, she would just smile. Look, like that, just like that. Yeah. Many of us are lucky because we have small problems. But given the way this culture is going, you know what the problem with America is? Power. You know, it's like Mike Tyson being angry, but being a great boxer. The anger doesn't go away. You express most of it in the boxing ring. America is powerful with abundance of goods, military, and so it gives this illusion that mental illness can be remedied, you know, very much like the way you send text. Just a couple of seconds. Read a book, see a therapist, and it'll go away. If you didn't have the power to escape the reality of certain life events, you'd be forced to wrestle with it, understand it, deal with it culturally. And then when a culture wrestles with big issues of life, then the culture can create the proper narratives, and then those narratives can be given to its citizens. If I had a mental breakdown, for example, there's a good chance I would be desiring to hang out with people who look like me and feel like me, because we can sit and talk about how we have been victims of life. Hello, you know. And we would have a great gloomy party together. If on the other hand you want to change the way you've been wired a little bit, hang out with people who are slightly healthy. So every time you begin to poop on the parade, they'll shut you down. That'll force you to stop talking, to stop feeling a certain way, and to join the crowd, which is everybody's dancing. You have no right to just sit. You know, everybody's talking about the ways to get better. You can't be just hopeless. You know, oftentimes you choose the people because they resemble the way you feel on the inside. And so you just sit and talk about, you know, the nonsense. Just in case, and forgive me for saying this publicly, just in case you're having some issues, just in case, I leave campus at about 11 o'clock. I have a great office. You can just sit in my office, do your assignments, do your work, whatever it is. I have some food there. You can sit there, take a nap there. The only thing is that you can't wear my clothes. But, you know, and Abi is there sometimes, you know, Kieran comes there sometimes. Never really, but I'm just saying. There are people who go there and just sit and make some tea. So, and that's for all of you, just in case. Yeah. Yes, Joey, your hand was up. Emily? Colin, yes. Danielle?
I was kind of wondering about work-life balance. That's
Oh, there is no balance. Forget that. Listen, how old are you? How old are you?
23.
You're a kid. I mean, forgive me for saying it like that. I'm just trying to be realistic. Sure, you need to work like 5-6 hours a week, a day to pay rent. I understand that. And then you need to have enough energy to do some schoolwork, okay? Your life is going to be a mess for the next like 20 years, okay? Okay, you're not going to find, you're not the Buddha, you're not Jesus Christ, you're nobody, okay? For you to find stability, you need to put some hard work in it initially. So the next 20 years means this. You work about 10 hours a day, then you come home, you do another 10 hours schoolwork. You have to take useless classes. There are no balances. Nobody gives a shit about you. You're nobody. Okay? I'm a nobody. Nobody's anybody. Okay? So this idea of stability and balance only happens when you have a great amount of power. Okay? Today is Friday. You work for 6 hours. There is no school. You can go home and rest. That's how you find balance. Weekday, you work like a dog. And you're going to work like a dog then, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. That's not even considering your skin color and what this culture does to it. You're not going to find any balance in people respecting you because of the way you look. You will have modicum of respect when you have power. When someone like me comes to you as a doctor and says, my heart hurts, I need surgery, and you say, I am doctor, whatever. Okay? So this balance that you speak about is the promised land. Ask Kiran and ask Abi there and ask Tammy. When you're a mother, you got no balance. Because every goddamn minute your kid is coming to you with an issue. And whatever stability you had a minute ago, that's completely gone. When their kids go to sleep, you think what? They can just rest easily? No. They wake up at 4 in the morning making food for their kids. And as they're making food, the image of their husband comes to mind. And they want to throw up, but they can't. Balance is like when Abi is like 95 and Kiran is 125 and their husbands are over 500, and then they can hold each other so they don't fall. Now they can just walk to a coffee shop and drink a sip of coffee and then walk home. That's balance. Now, if superficially you're saying, well, I have a girlfriend, I have work, and I have school, I want to make sure I pay attention to all, then take a management class, The offer that Laney. No, not really, but I'm just saying. Then, if that is the foundation of your question is, just in case you get out of balance, I'm sure your companion will smack you, by squinting like this. Where were you? What are you doing? Or, tone of her voice. And just in case, you get an F in a class, that'll kind of wake you up a little bit. So.
The other half of it.
No, but the other thing is, look, let me just say this last thing. If you want to be good at anything, really, really good, whether it's cooking or playing tennis or being a great philosopher, you have to be an extremist. You really do. There is no balance. Your life is going to be upside down because you're only focused on one thing and you dismiss most of the other things in life. It's like having cancer. You love your wife, you love your kids, you love life. But what captures your attention, 95% of you occupied, is just cancer. If you want to be a doctor, that's your goal. Your wife is not going to see you as much. Your kids are not going to see you as much. Your friends are not going to see you as much, and you're not going to be able to watch too much TV. If you want to be mediocre like me, then take a management class and they'll teach you, 2 hours for your wife, 2 hours for bathroom, 2 hours for this, 2 hours for that, and then you can die a happy man. Not really, but is it? Yeah. No balance. And don't hang out with crappy people. And understand your past. And make sure your future is has some value to it. And don't hang out with these people. Especially Colin. Abi? No, there is no balance there. You can't balance it. Look, if there are no pressing issues, if there is nothing out there that bothers you, if you're not a serious thinker about any aspect of life, then yes, you can have balance. In the sense that you can come to class and kind of be numb, then you can go to another class and be numb, then you can go to work and just kind of be numb there. You work for 7, 8 hours, then you can go to a party and just be numb. You'll have fun, okay? But if you happen to be serious, in other words, going back to my ridiculous example, if I have cancer, the truth is most of my conversation will be about cancer. Most of the things I want to talk about will be around death. You know, how my family is going to survive once I pass. You know, there is no balance. I'm not going to be interested in my wife telling me what you want for dinner. I don't give a shit what you make me. You know, I'm going to die. Okay. If you happen to be, again, serious in any one aspect of life, there is no balance because that is your focus. If all of a sudden there is a phone call coming to you and it's your daughter saying, I just fell, or someone did ABC to me, well, the truth is you're going to pack up your stuff and you're going to leave, and you're not going to give a shit about what these people think about your absence. You don't care. Okay. People who are serious, for the most part, have no balance. It's, you know, it's something that Elon Musk had mentioned in one of his interviews. I don't really like him. But given the fact that he is a genius, and geniuses are just problematic, period, he says, I wouldn't want anyone to be in my mind because there's always a storm there. You know, you're thinking about how to make something work better. You want to think better. You want to feel better. You want to write better. As Kiran had mentioned, I want my kids to be better. All of my questions now revolve around my kids. I don't give a shit about Jesus Christ or Socrates. They're not going to help me with my kids. What school do I need to send them? What school is good for them to be in? What people should I hang out with? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the New Testament. Give me some practical advice. You know? And so when her husband comes home and says, well, let me tell you about the case I'm dealing with, I don't give a shit what you're doing, man. And so this idea of balance means the following. Can I just tell it to you? Imagine for a moment I am a philosopher and I'm single. And I've been a philosopher ever since I was, let's say, 11. I run into you and I find you attractive. The only way I can keep my balance in life is by making sure that you also enjoy philosophy. I don't care about your past. I don't care about your future. The only way that my life will continue its balance is by you becoming like me. Okay. Now, your question didn't have much to do with relationships. So what you're saying is, I have a physical life, I have an emotional life, I have an intellectual life, and I have a spiritual life. Okay. I wake up in the morning and my emotional, intellectual life consists, and forget the spiritual because it doesn't exist. My kids, food, cleaning the house. Okay. And that's what occupies my mind. All of a sudden, I begin to think about Jesus Christ, that I have a soul inside me, but my soul has been held hostage by my physical life. And my physical life has a lot of mental issues in it and lots of emotional issues in it. My kids, my wife, my husband, this and that, okay? What you really want is to live a spiritual life, but you have the physical life in your way. You're not going to find balance for a long, and it depends how you also define, the spiritual life. Some people have this idea, well, as I'm washing dishes, I'm going to think about Jesus Christ. That you can do that, but that's for very, very, very advanced people. Who can kind of see the image of God on dirty plates. That's not me. Okay. When I see dirty plates, I hate my wife for having cooked. because now I gotta wash all these plates. You know. Charles Darwin, his father wanted him to be a priest. His uncle knew that Darwin didn't have a capacity. Darwin married a very, very religious woman, but he kept his ideas to himself about evolution and the possibility of God not existing. Because he said, I don't want to cause pain for my wife. I have the capacity to live without God, perhaps, but my wife doesn't. And just because I'm an intellectual, just because I'm a serious thinker about this stuff, it doesn't mean I need to impose myself onto my wife. Okay? Sometimes, so, anyways. Yeah. Yes, Colin. Joey.
Was someone born a philosopher or did they go through?
There was a woman some years ago whose daughter was killed by a drunk driver. And so she loved her daughter and she was devastated. So she created this movement called MAD, Mothers Against, drunk driving. You have, I suppose, two kinds of people. You have ones that are manufactured. In other words, life delivers events. Those events devastate you. Pain usually causes a good amount of reflection. You sit, you think, you reflect, and all of a sudden, that pain becomes your mentor. In other words, it removes fun out of your life and you become very, very serious. And you become to some extent a universalist in the sense that it's not just my daughter. Your daughter could also, suffer such an event. I could devastate any parent, any family. Then there are the organic kinds. And by organic, I mean someone like Soren Kierkegaard, the 19th century existential philosopher, who said, when I was born with gray hair. I was born old. That was my sibling. I would never be able to have fun. I was far too an introvert. Everything that I saw, it made me think. Everything caused me pain. Sometimes you're just a mediocre chap. No event has taken place, but all of a sudden you run into a Socrates, you run into a Jesus Christ. Consider, for example, the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew is a womanizer. And Matthew has like brothels. Matthew is also a tax collector. Jesus runs into him. He goes to his house, has supper with him. And there is just something about Jesus, and Matthew doesn't know what it is, but he's more than willing to get rid of all of his life and follow him. And that's what he does. And the point is, you may be the way you are, very casual, unserious, unreflective, or maybe reflective once in a while, and you may have a companion who may be a serious thinker about this or another, something. They may be like interested in cancer research. And that is enough to pull you into that world. And all of a sudden, even though you didn't really care about much in life and just want to party, all of a sudden, through association alone, you're morphed into something that you weren't. Not very many of us are lucky enough to kind of create that or have that transition and have that transition last a lifelong. Most of us are inspired for 5 minutes, maybe a week, maybe a year, and then it just goes away because we just go back into life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, a couple of things about philosophers. Philo means love. Sophia means wisdom. And here's the problem. I can fall in love with you because I can speak with you, look at you, smell you, taste you. I can do all of that. You and I can hang out, hold hands, have dinner together, create a history. I can fall in love with a video game. I can fall in love with Cristiano Ronaldo. I can fall in love with what my five senses bring in. I don't know where wisdom is. I don't know what it is. I know what data is. I know what information is. I know what knowledge is. You know.
So we can't fall in love with things that we don't know about?
Well, you can't fall in love with things that... You can fall in love with the mystery without falling in love with the thing itself. You can fall in love with the fact that you have enough information in your head. You have been able to bring this conflicting information together to turn into a knowledge, so you can come to class and give a 5-hour talk about Karl Marx or Jesus Christ. You become very knowledgeable. There comes a point where you say, I don't want to know anything more about Jesus Christ. I want to know what lived inside him. To force him out at the age of 12. To have him travel to India, to Persia, to Egypt, to all these places. To sit at the feet of all these different teachers. Then to go into the desert, to sit there. What the hell was wrong with them? I mean, 2,000 years ago, who leaves their parents? I mean, you're of the Jewish community. It's not like today, I'm an atheist. You know, it doesn't work that way. People are not open-minded like that, if you want to describe our culture as open-mindedness. And so there comes a point where you say, I am looking for the thing that lived inside him, like Karl Marx, like Malcolm X. I mean, I can read his book. I just want to be like him. I just don't know where to go to buy that. I don't know if anyone sells like a Malcolm X being or a Socrates being. And then you realize you've fallen in love with a mystery, with the X. And when you fall in love with a mystery, it means that you've been disappointed in information and the knowledge that live inside you. And now you live in the dark. You're chasing something you don't know. Maybe in time you happen to be one of those lucky chaps in life that you'll have a breakthrough and you'll get a glimpse of the face of wisdom, you know, or Socrates or God or whatever. You know, it's like this kid who just was in love with Cristiano Ronaldo. It's a true story. He made music for him. He did some plastic surgery on his face to look like him. But what he really wanted was to meet him. A lot of people want to like run into Cristiano Ronaldo. They just don't have the privilege. This kid, all of a sudden, ran into him. You know. So there are some of us who try and get nowhere, and there are some of us who try and do get somewhere, and there are those who don't try and get to the place that took us like 20 years to get to. So, isn't that true, Tyrell? The what? Yeah. Adlami, any last parting question?
How people that they also why people
Have you ever dated someone who works in the ER, emergency room, hospitals? No? Oh, you need to go to this dating app, you know, like ER's looking for hookups. There may be a dating app like that, I don't know. But what you realize is, first of all, these are like 12-hour shifts. Look for someone who works at Highland Hospital. These are 12-hour shifts, and it's just a mess. I mean, every second you have someone coming in, okay? And you realize with the volume of patients coming in and the intensity that lives inside you, you have no time to sit and rest. You have no time to eat. You're always on the move. Then you come home. And then after a while, and especially if you're an intern, you got to be on that job for a while, okay? Then you come home. The problem with home life is that it's very, very, very slow. If you've seen that, have you seen that movie Zootopia? Where they go to the bank and the clerk is Sloth, I think. Says, "Hey Sloth, how you doing?" "Fine. How are you?" Right? When you come home as an ER doctor, that's your life. Very, very slow. And it's going to take you a good amount of time and just mental resources to bring yourself down and be okay with just things being boring. One of the things about us, we love excitement. We love things that are just going really, really fast. It creates this feeling of aliveness, and it's enjoyable. Then you come home and it just feels like, you're in a mortuary. Everything is dead. Forgive me. Yeah.
If there's a lack of balance, but how do we cope with like incapability of having a routine every single day? Because sometimes you just wake up and you just don't feel good for no reason. How do you cope with that?
Say again.
How do you cope with the inconsistency of like moods almost? Like you don't always feel the same every single day, so it's impossible to keep up with it like a normal.
I can't claim to have understood your question, but I'll give it to you in this particular form. I have a friend. She's really, really nice. She's really, really, really nice. And she's usually in a good mood. And then 2 weeks before her cycle, everything about her changes. And for the past 45 years, her mood swings have always mystified her. She doesn't know why all of a sudden she gets dark and gloomy, and she just removes herself from anything social. We took her to some physician, a couple of weeks ago, and this physician was really, really good. She was like a psychologist and a surgeon and all sorts of things. And eventually it dawned on her that 2 weeks before having her cycle, she has this swing and everything turns upside down. So she has about 1 good week, 3 bad weeks. And now she's preparing to get ready. Every month now, when we call her, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing?" "I'm preparing myself, it's coming. So just in case you don't hear from me, you know why." Moods are very, very strange. Colin, where are you going?
I gotta drive my friends to the airport.
Anyway, so can you maybe ask this on Wednesday? And if I'm in the right balance, we can talk about it. Yeah. It's good to see all of you. Have a nice day.